Yeah, you're sitting at about 3 inches around here, maybe up in the garage.
About 2 inches.
Okay. So I've got 3 different renovation projects going on right now. I've got the neighbor's full renovation that started on August 2nd. I've got a full renovation of 2 acres that we're working on here out in the country not too far from me. And then also I've got my lawn, which was sand leveled, and also then a full renovation that I wasn't planning on in the backyard here. So if you haven't seen that video on what I'm doing in the backyard, you want to check that out, that I just put out recently here. But let's take a look at everything today, see what the progress has been, see what the challenges have been, and kind of go from there and show you what's going on. Alright, so let's first start over here at the neighbor's house. So remember that I said it was seeded on August 2nd. You know, not too far along here when it comes to bluegrass, and of course the ryegrass that's in here has thrived quite a bit more than the bluegrass yet. I'll show you a couple of these sections where the bluegrass is still pretty young, and it will do that because we also did an overseed. So for the most part, everything is actually filling in pretty nicely considering the time frame. And there's really just a couple of different things that we're dealing with, but even from a week ago, I'm gonna show you a couple things here from just a week ago. You can see the difference in how much it's starting to fill in. Now, this is what's happened in the last couple weeks. So we did an overseed at about the 1 month mark. So we put down just a light layer again of bluegrass and a very light layer of just slightly more ryegrass. We wanted to do that just because it wasn't filling in a few of the spots where I think we didn't get great water coverage to start. And so we noticed that there was a few really thin areas. So we tried to take care of that right away and get that overseed done. And after that, you could see there was a major difference in terms of once that grass seed started coming up, then things were looking a lot better for thickness. So then we did another round of starter fertilizer, and that kind of boosted things as well. We did 1 spray of the soil hume, which I've been using on some renovations as they progress along to push some more root growth with the kelp that's in there. So we applied some of that stuff. Now just last night we applied another application of liquid. This was the 1648 stuff that comes out of my box, or you can get just from Simple Lawn Solutions. Now we're pushing this weekly with about 0.2 pounds of nitrogen to start to move this as thick as we can possibly get it yet this year before we get into the winter season. And the bluegrass just needs to mature yet. It needs some time. This is very early yet for bluegrass. So my neighbor got to do his first rotary mow on this just about a week ago, and he's starting now to mow basically every 2-3 days, however much it needs in terms of keeping up with the growth. And he's mowing it about 2 inches at this point. Probably going to stay there for this year, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe it will get raised up a little bit next summer, but in terms of where it looks right now, it's looking pretty good at that height, and we want to push things sideways and just keep that mowing going. So I think I talked about this in one of the first updates, but this section right through here has been the most difficult to get the seed to grow in. I mean, you've got a lot of water runoff because of the way that this slopes. So we have enough growth in here of bluegrass that's very young yet that I'm not too worried about it because it's going to fill in all this stuff. It's just going to take some time to mature. So that's kind of where we're at with this little section. I'd say that's probably the thinnest that we have. So this section right through here with kind of the lime colored grass is the overseeding that we did. And this is a lot of bluegrass that has come up, but it's not really matured yet. Got a really good root system on it to get that darker color. That will start to come later on once it gets more mature, but you can tell these are still in really the infant stages. But I'm happy with how much coverage is in there because that means all of this stuff is going to be really nice and thick once we get probably to next spring. I mean, maybe this fall it'll still mature a little bit more, but we're running into October here very quickly, so bluegrass takes definitely some time. And I noticed on my renovation last year when I did the 3 mono stands, it took about to the next spring until I started to really notice it pushing. So overall, being a full renovation and about a month and a half old, pretty pleased with these results. And by the time we get into next season, we start to push the full year program, everything is going to be looking really, really nice over here. Just wanted to take a stop out today here out at this big project, and to say that I am impressed with how it looks would be a major understatement at this point, because I was a little skeptical that it was going to go this well considering our drought that we were having, and considering that, you know, this is just natural irrigation. There was not really going to be a way to get any of this main section irrigated. So up around the house, I'll show you what that looks like right now. That's of course where Paul put all of that straw, and that looks really, really good. It's come in very nicely there, and he was keeping the irrigation on that, so I'm not surprised by that part. But what I am surprised by is how this is looking out here. Now, of course, it's not completely full yet by any means, but to have this only have basically 1 week of rainfall that was pretty consistent and also didn't wash everything out, which at my house I had pretty heavy rains, we're going to be able to make some major progress with this yet, in terms of probably laying down some more seed here before winter gets here for dormant seeding, keep our fertilizer program going. Next year, do some preventative to make sure that the foxtail that was out there, crabgrass that was out there before, won't be taking over this grass. And Paul's going to be having some great time mowing, and hopefully maybe he'll let me mow with the zero turn out here, because that would be kind of fun for me. It's something I don't really ever get to do. So I guess I would say at this point my only concern going forward would be that I'm not seeing a whole lot of rain in the forecast at this point, so as long as our weather stays cooler, everything should be okay, because we've got a good strand of grass going, but it also still needs water in order to keep itself alive here before we get to the end of the season. But let's take a look now at my yard renovations that are going on. Let's first take a look at the sand leveling. So I'll put it up on the screen here exactly what day I did this, because I can't remember now. Things have filled in extremely nicely after the overseed. So this is cut at 1/2 inch right now, and I'm trying to train it there for the rest of this year. Usually during the summertime, I move it up to 3/4 inch, or at least last year I did 3/4 inch for most of the whole year. And I like that height too, but coming down to about 1/2 starts to get a little tighter look to it, and I really like the way that that looks. So most of this grass seed that was planted seems to be completely germinated. It's starting to grow more vigorously now. But now what I'm going to focus on is some of the color. Now you might say this color is pretty good, and it's looking pretty good so far, but I can do a little better in terms of once that stuff that is overseeded matures, it will get a darker color to it, and I'm going to start pushing more iron on this. So I did my first application of iron last night, just light applications of iron going into the rest of this fall season, probably every week to 2 weeks, somewhere in there. So it just kind of depends on how it's looking, and I kind of judge that by just how it responds. But so far though, that overseed is growing in well. The sand leveling did a pretty good job. I'm ready to do another round, honestly, once I did it, because I noticed still a few spots that I can fix. And I'm not as scared now because I've got one round under my belt, so I'll probably do another round of sand next spring. Now over on this section, which was really the bumpiest, I'm going to be probably slightly more aggressive with sand next season and see if I can get this a little smoother. The front yard is not bad at all. It's pretty good. This section was where we brought in more of those irrigation lines, and there's some more bumpy areas in here. Now, it's not terrible, again, by any means. It's not like I'm bouncing around like crazy or anything. It's fairly smooth. There's just some low spots in there that I want to try to fix more. Again, same type of thing. It's recovered from the sand really well. I put some overseeding on this, but not probably quite as heavy as the front, because this has bluegrass mixed into it, so it's a blue and rye mix. And you can definitely tell now everything's starting to recover, because that bluegrass has a really tight-knit look to it. Same height here, 1/2 inch. Main thing I'm dealing with and continue to deal with would be earthworms. They are extremely annoying on low-cut turf, but otherwise, as you'll see down here, you don't really see the sand anymore. If you pull this back, it's starting to get pretty tight there to where you can't really see the soil. There's still some fairly new ryegrass in here that's not very mature yet, so it's going to get thicker and it's going to get more dense than this will, even at this point. But for the most part there, you're not really seeing the sand. In my last update here after the sand, I know many of you were extremely concerned that I hadn't done edging, or how come I haven't done my edging work, and I had just overseeded this about 8 days before that, so that includes the edges that I needed to actually get the overseeding done. That's grass that wasn't very mature yet, so I like to let it go a couple weeks or so before I go into the edging part, just to make sure I let everything that's going to grow in along that edge that's new grass not become damaged from the edging work. But I know a lot of you were concerned about that, so I just wanted to make sure you know that yes, I do have an edger Yes, I do edge the lawn. There was a specific reason why I hadn't done it yet. So if you didn't see what happened with this backyard, make sure to go check out my video on basically a mistake that I made back here that turned into a full renovation. So I just posted that not too long ago. Make sure to check that out. Where I'm at right now with this thing back here is that it's starting to grow in fairly well. I'm on day 15 today. I think you get a little more impatient anytime you don't really plan to do a renovation and something occurs to where you have to actually do that. Then you get a little more impatient because you just want it to go back to the way that it was before and quickly. But you have to also understand that for where I'm at right now with this, I'm starting to see good growth here on this thing, and I think probably within maybe the next week or so I might be able to do a first mow on this. It's starting to grow more rapidly. We're getting some 80s in temperature range this week, and I've started to see quite a bit more growth. I'll for sure let you know all the updates on this fall, and hopefully by the end of the season back here I'll at least have something decent to mow. That's my main goal at this point, so we'll see how it goes. But thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.